Okay.
Then do the cloud. Just a second. Okay, we should be
ready to go. All right, join palms, bow. 4 great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless fixations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all. A lot of familiar faces and new faces. That's good. I hope that you got yourselves all strapped in because you may not know what time it is after this lecture. I'm going to dedicate this lecture to my master, Sheng, and start with a story that up until a few moments ago, I really didn't completely understand, which was once when I was going to a retreat. Before the retreat, I caught Master Sheng in the Chan Meditation Center in between floors. There was a very narrow building with a staircase going up. And I stopped them and I said, Shifu, I understand what this is about. And he stopped and listened to me. And I said, it's like somebody that's riding a bicycle and you stick a stick into the spokes and the bike just suddenly stops and it's finished. And he thought about it, he visualized it, and then he went, yes, that's the way it is. And then I was walking away and he called me Gilbert. And as I looked back, he just kind of pointed his finger at me and said, but remember, it only stops for you. That was important. His little admonitions like that were very, very important. And I realized that this stopping that I was talking about was the stopping of samsara, the stopping of time itself. I couldn't articulate that at that point, nor really understand what that was. This is something that when we practice Buddha Dharma, I always emphasize that one should be in the present moment. And Shifu used to say, the Buddha is in the present moment. When we think of this in this way, then we understand that every time, if we ask what time is it, it's Buddha time. Buddha time isn't one that's dependent on samsaric movements and measurements of movements, but it is the experience and awareness of what is arising within mind. And it's very important as we begin to understand this, that all these pieces begin to fit together and we begin to make sense of this. This is what Nagarjuna started with the Madhyamaka school, his middle way, and his refutation of many things, whether it was space or form, and also time, that he took it to a certain point in terms of saying what time is not and what form is not. But if anyone would ask him, then what is it? There isn't an it to define. And so he left it hanging. The Tathagata Garbha Sutras came along and fleshed out this kind of a thinking and established this third turning of the Dharma wheel, which was the idea of that everything is Buddha nature. And as everything is Buddha nature, everything is created by the mind. This is one of the most profound teachings in the Vatamsaka Sutra, the Huayan Jing, is that everything is created by the mind. Wherever you look, it could be called Dharma Dhatu or Dharma Dhatu nature, the cosmos, whatever. All of those things are created by mind, including the idea of time. So Nagarjuna didn't want to just completely refute time. He was refuting the existence of someone measuring time on a watch or looking at the sun and counting out a year or a month by the moon. He was very, very clear that these things belong to samsara. In our practice, we practice to turn the mind's eye inward. And this is important, and it's very difficult for us to understand what turning the mind's eye inward means. Turning the mind's eye inward is that it enables us to use the senses to contemplate. We become aware of our coursing through the environment, and we are seeing things and understanding and operating within this environment in accordance with our vows, not with the idea that we want to, for self-aggrandizement or for any kind of an egotistical pleasure. These kinds of pleasures are few and far between. And when we practice in this way, we find that there is great suffering that accompanies this kind of a sensation of pleasure. What I want to do is talk to you about time, because this way you begin to chip away at the idea of this world as being real. Let's see here. I was looking up different definitions of time, and time is said to be is continued sequence of existence and events that occurs in an apparently irreversible succession from past through present into future. That's a textbook definition of time, or a dictionary definition of time, rather than one that's based on philosophical or scientific or anything. Is if somebody was trying to say time, it's something measured in a sequence of events and apparently irreversible, means it can't go the other way. Is that true or not? Perhaps not. If time is an actual, that there's only one way to travel in time, then perhaps we can't go back the other way. Well, certainly that might prove to be difficult, even in terms of scientifically, to be able to reverse and go back the other way in samsara. But that's assuming that time is real, and assumes that time behaves in a particular way, or is that solely the province of samsara and the way time appears to act in this samsaric world? If the samsaric world is, as the Diamond Sutra says, is a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a dewdrop on a leaf, an illusion, a phantasm, a dream, then those properties are only constant within samsara. The power of a sutra such as the Vatamsaka Sutra, the Huayan Jing, or other sutras of this class, is that it enables one to expand this idea of what is real or what is not real, not based on the constructs of samsara, which is a dream, but using Buddha mind perception, which changes the whole game. The game now is not limited to this tiny little fiefdom we call this world, or even this cosmos or universe. Who knows how many universes there are? The sutras talk about billions of Buddhas, billions of Buddha worlds. We don't understand that. It's difficult for us to understand something like that. It's difficult for us to even comprehend when a sutra says that 5 billion Buddha worlds can be found on a single strand of hair. That type of measurement is well beyond what we can comprehend. It's inconceivable, and that's the exact reason why it's there. So when we look at this and we begin to see it, and we use the reasoning of Nagarjuna to take a look at the world, then the idea of time measurement is something very interesting. Like, for instance, let's just stop for a moment. Contemplate time right now. Can you really say how much time transpired? And in this contemplation, was there an interest to continue to contemplate? It's something very interesting. There was a famous theologian and philosopher, St. Augustine. It's very interesting because he said that I know time, but if someone asks me to explain time to them, I don't know it. Very interesting. And he said that we cannot measure time cosmologically, meaning that given a measurement from the circling around another heavenly body, we can't measure things like that. We can't measure things in a way because he said that if one was going to say a prayer in a certain way, could we measure the time of that prayer? And we'd say this is the time. But if one says the prayer very fast, then was that time different than the time to say it slowly? And it's all kind of relative in terms of this. Many philosophers have kind of struggled with this idea. And what I'm doing is kind of jumping around and poking at time from different viewpoints to give you an idea of what people throughout time had to say about it. It's very interesting. Back in the Greek times, they noted that there were two types of measurements of time. One of them was called chronos, and this was a numerical or chronicle time, the time maybe perhaps that we circle around the sun or moon or whatever, a day, and the sun rising and falling. And then they had another one called Kurios. And Kurios, Kairos, is the right or opportune moment. Very interesting way to measure time. And it says it relates specifically to the metaphysical or divine time. So Kurios is a qualitative time rather than a quantitative time. Probably the way I could explain that with a corny song is I could have danced all night, and still had stayed for more. And do you think that person was measuring time, or did the time go fast for them? So the way that we measure time all depends. If one's sitting on the cushion, they measure time with the pain in their legs sometimes. And how long is that time when one is measuring pain in their legs? Perhaps a kalpa, 2 kalpas of time. Who knows? I mean, one is interminably suffering in that moment. And then the moment the pain goes away, one will hear click, click, ding and go, how did that time pass? That seemed like 5 minutes, not 40 minutes or an hour or whatever. So we really can't experience time simply by some measurement of things. It is what we use to be able to function within this world and show up for work on time. I mean, you can't show up for work at noontime and the boss goes to you and says, hey, you were supposed to be here at 8:00. I'm on qualitative time and I was enjoying the morning. Well, you'll enjoy every morning at home because you'll be fired. But the thing is that in this world, these things are the measurements. But because of that, then we constrain ourselves. We constrain ourselves and bind ourselves to this world. We see things in this way. We're young, middle-aged, we're old, we're dying. Oh my gosh, I'm dying. It's my time to die. And then what do you do? Is the time going quick like this? Or is the time going very, very, very slowly? Oh, I wish it would die. It's difficult to say exactly what the time is in terms of all of that. So this is what the Greeks had to say about it. And then in ancient cultures, Incas, Mayans, Hopi, the North American tribes, Babylonians, the Greeks, Hindus, and Buddhists saw things more like a cyclical or like a wheel of time, especially with Buddhists, because we're always talking about like when you finish this life, boom, you get back in line and you start again. So then what was the time from the past life to this life? And is there a connection between those? And what is moving on? It's very, very interesting when we begin to take a look at it, but we cannot resolve it from the samsaric viewpoint. And those who aren't familiar with the word samsaric, it is this apparent reality or life that we are in, that we live through this life with the idea of holding on to an ego, and at the end, then we finish. And then we start again in this whole cycle that we may be from the heaven realm to the demagogues to the human realm to the animal realm to the spirit or ghost realm and the hell realm. And we can go anywhere through that cycle, but we're stuck in a dream. And we're stuck in this idea of a time, but who knows how long this has been going on? We wouldn't know that, nor would we know, how many times this universe has been created. The difficulty with time in this way is what they call the circularity problem. And the circularity problem is that you cannot measure time as a discrete point. Time is measured in distance or passage of something that we go from here to there, and it may be the rotation of the earth around the sun, or rotation of the earth rotating in relationship to the sun. But there's something there always that we have to add on there to define time. It's not that you can define time and say, what is time? What is time? So I welcome you afterwards to contemplate just time, not how it's related to something, to another thing, because what you find is it doesn't exist. Apart from something, that's the circularity problem, is it doesn't exist. And throughout the ages, this has been the problem, and this is the one that drives the scientists crazy, because they have to measure things in such ways, and they've gotten down to something like x to the minus 54th power to try to say this is the finest measurement possible of time. Really, I don't think so. It isn't in that way, no matter how much we slice it and slice it and slice it. Can we really do it? You slice your hand through the air. What are you cutting? It's the same thing with time. I'm in this present moment, and this very, very moment I'm here. Well, it's over here now in the past. And then I'm coming up on a new one over here in the future. Oh, no, now it's the present. No, it's in the past now. And you're grasping, trying to catch this time. But the purpose of this exercise is, if one lets go of that, then one lets go of the idea of a life and being. How long do we measure a dream? Have you ever had a dream and your alarm goes off? And the dream had been going on for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, you get to the exciting part. Maybe something's going to get you, or you're going to win some award or whatever. And then bap, 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 and you're awake. And could all of that happen between the first beep of your alarm and the second beep of your alarm in the moment that you're trying to awaken? All of that seemed to be real in your dream, and it passes so quickly. How long does a dream last? We don't know. But here, using Nagarjuna's layering of refutations, he finally gets to time and says, prove it. Prove that this time is there. We haven't gotten to his refutation yet, but we will. But all of this is a preface in terms of looking at things and seeing. My purpose in presenting this to you is, in accordance with Master Sheng said, was that the world stopped, but only for me. What I want to do is be able to stop this world for you. It can freeze frame for a moment or deconstruct and then reboot, reappear. And the only difference is that with the mind turned in the right way, the mind's eye turned in the right way, it knows that it's in a dream. It knows that there is a function and a purpose for being in this dream. It has an idea of what to do with this body, what to do with this mouth, what to do with this, to be able to communicate, to see and say, this body is precious. I can use it to awaken those that are stuck in a dream, are stuck in this idea of this false sense of time. And that sense of time causes suffering. When we let go of that, then we know what we're doing here in the world. It doesn't mean we're not immune to getting sick or sitting there and while a policeman writes up a ticket for us, or whatever adversities that may affect us. But it is something that we can remain calm. We understand that this is the world. We understand how all of this works. And that's important. It's all created by the mind, including this concept of time, which is in fact unsupportable. in Book 11 of Confessions, St. Augustine of Hippo had said, as I'd mentioned to you earlier, that what is this time? And if no one asks me, I know. And if I wish to explain it to one that asks, I know not. And when he talks about time, he talks about negative definitions. What time is not? So it's kind of a refutation of time in the same manner in which 1,800 years before him, Nagarjuna was setting out. And he calls time a distension of mind. And it took me quite a bit of time to figure out what he was referring to as this distension of time. Anybody know what distension means? Neither did I. And distension, first of all, there's like a distension of bowels, means that your bowels are swelling up. Doesn't sound very, very nice, but it's a distension saying that it is as if one had this ego, or you could call it mind or consciousness, and it works out to try to define the purpose of the ego, the place of the ego, the locale of the ego. That without that distension, without that broadening, then the ego cannot exist, which it doesn't. But what it does is it creates a false image of time and purpose to give meaning to this appearance. And so it's in the dream going, what am I going to do in this dream? What do I do? Oh, I have an interest in this person. I have an interest in procreating and raising little images of me, and I need to make money, or I need to do this. And so it's creating this and saying, in the future, I will have a good job, or I will do this. And I'm working here. In the past, I was poor, but I'm doing better now. And it's a distension. It's like a blowing up to try to hold the image that you exist, that there is something there, that there is a life in being. Now, the Buddha didn't necessarily say there was no self. What he said was there's not self. And this is consistent with what Nagarjuna says, that it's neither exists nor doesn't exist. It is just part of mind. When we turn the mind's eye inward and look at things and look at time, we understand that this time is created by the mind. We understand that the images that are appearing as projections on the Dharmakaya, the Dharma body, are mind. They may be fleeting appearances, and throughout history, there's been many discussions, and they all refer to the phenomenal. This is Huayan school, and in the Huayan school, they follow the Vatamsaka Sutra, and seeing things as phenomenally appearing, belonging to mind, belonging to the noumenon, which is the matrix or the base upon which everything appears on. And when we see things in this way, it enables us to understand, and it enables us to be able to put a minor little pinprick into that bubble, get an idea, to begin to seep in some wisdom that enables us to begin to break out of the bubble. And that's important. So long as we hold on to the idea of a life and being, then we're stuck here. Not only are we stuck here, but again, this is for those of you who want some hope, although albeit it's the hope of grasping sea foam in the ocean to support you, if you die, you come back again. That's Gilbert's lifetime guarantee. So if you don't practice, you're guaranteed to come back. If you practice, you're guaranteed to come back. The only difference is that you know why you're here. Not bad. So I'm throwing this all out at you and bombarding you with all of this because this is the way it should be done. My job is not to make everything empirically clear here. My job is to make you feel uneasy, make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel a little bit confused about things. If you go and listen to somebody speak, some well-known advisor, and they say, oh, he was so wonderful. I understood everything that he said. It was so clear. I feel so much better now. I feel relieved. I feel this. Then I'm not that person. I want you to feel uncomfortable. I want you to feel a little squirmy in terms of saying, is this world real? You know, is this my beautiful wife? Is this my beautiful home? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm channeling some old rock song. But in any case, is this the way that we look? We have to see things in a clear way. And it's like we've got here in this world, I hate to use this, but it's like we want to hold on to this dog feces. And I want to give you these jewels. But you go, but this I know. This I don't know. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that. But if you let go, if you have faith in mind, you can do it. You can break through. And then you'll see that you're incredibly rich. I've been saying lately that I'm the richest person in the world. Why? Because I have all of these jewels I want to share with you. All of them for free. Take them. Take them. They will help you. They will alleviate your suffering. You have a headache, take one. You have a money problem, take one. Family problem, take one. You're getting old, take one. Not bad. So it's this idea that I'm using with the time to show you how Buddha Dharma works, because it breaks down the constructs of what you think to be as real. Let's see, where am I at? Okay. And another person, this Martin Heidegger, he said, we do not exist inside time. We are time. And again, this is very, very close to St. Augustine and his distension of mind, or the Greeks talking about the qualitative mind or qualitative time. And so when we see things in this way, it changes what we're doing. In the 5th century BC, close to the time of the Buddha, this Antiphon, who was a sophist, I don't know what a sophist is, I'll have to look it up, in a fragment preserved in his chief work on truth, held time is not a reality, but a concept, a noumena, or a measure, a metron. Parmenides went further, maintaining that time, motion, change were illusions, leading to the paradox of his follower Zeno. Time as an illusion is also a common theme, in Buddhist thought. Who would know, right? Well, we were the ones that were putting it out at that time and saying that. So it's very interesting in terms of that. So much to share with you, but I want to get to the if you can put up the image on examination of time, Michael. All right, so you scroll down and you'll see, okay, the examination of time, and that was from this book, The Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way. This is on Nagarjuna's, and I don't have Santa here to correct my pronunciation, but it's Mulamana Dhyanakarika. And it reads, and you can follow with me. I don't do too much of this kind of PowerPoint stuff, but it says on this one it's very important because of the fact that it's quite complicated. If the present and the future depend on the past, then the present and the future would have existed in the past. But it isn't in that way, right? How can we say that it's there? But if we're trying to say that these depend on the past, why would they depend on the past? Because that's something that we measure. We have to measure and say, oh, how long ago was that? I was young, a very long time ago. I'll get older and then maybe I'm gone. In the future, I'm gone. But all of those things have to be dependent on the past. But if the past is gone, then how can we depend upon it? So this is an attack that's going directly to the idea of this independent origination, or the attack on the Abhidharma school of realist, and saying that everything is real, and saying, oh, is that if everything is real, then if time is real, it's not, that doesn't even possibly make any sense. So he's breaking down the Abhidharma, and not necessarily from using the tetralemma arguments here, but a direct attack just on time itself, because it's an easy way to do it, because once he's established that the form is not real, space is not real, then it's very easy to break down time. So the next one is, if the present and the future does not exist here, how could the present and the future depend on it? So if the present and the future do not exist, then how could this present and this future, in terms of trying to depend on something, it can't. These things are not fixed points. And so if we have time, by its definition, it's a flow. So there's not really something where we can stop and say, stop right now. This is the past, this is the future, this is the present, because we'd have to go, stop right now. This is the past, this is the present, this is the future. Stop right now. You see, it doesn't work that way. If they are not dependent upon the past, then neither two would be established. Therefore, neither would be present, nor the future would exist. And does the future exist? Yes, no, maybe, because we don't know. We know that there's a possibility of things, or probabilities of things that are going to happen, but we don't know for sure that they're there. And then the fourth one then is, by the same method, the other two divisions, past and future, upper, lower, middle unity, should be understood. So essentially going and reversing the argument and saying, if you try to establish the future or the past, the same arguments can be made that there, in order to establish time of the past, present, and future, it's contradictory. Why is it contradictory? Because in order to establish it, it'd have to be static. the past is static. The future, who knows what I'm going to say. I have a present thought of what I may say, and I'm going to say it's static. Now that's in the past. So it's constantly changing. We don't understand that, but we should. Everything is in this way, constantly changing. Time, form, location, everything is always moving, but it's moving in a manner which is dependent upon everything else, such as in the Hawaiian school of Indra's net, of that a net that has jewels on each of the points where it's connected and reflecting all of the jewels within the net. It is in this way, everything is dependent. We don't see it that way because we're just trying to go in this linear way of going this way to try to see things, because the ego says, don't pay attention to Gilbert. He'll confuse you to no end. He's going to finish you. You know, you need me to be sane. You need me to go to work. What if tomorrow I don't want to go to work? Well, it doesn't work that way. Mind uses wisdom and follows function. It is the ego that comes in and presents the problems to people. Recently, I went to a retreat, or I was interviewing people at a retreat in Jinsong, and one of the persons says, I have to quit. Why do you have to quit? Because my mind says that if I continue on, it'll be the end of me and I will have great fear. And I don't want to be afraid. And I said, it is your very mind, your ego, that is creating this fear, that it is that fear that you're conquering by sitting on your cushion. No, I can't, because I'm getting too afraid to sit. So the person left the retreat. There was nothing I could do to explain to them that it was their very illusory ego in irrational behavior that had them walk out of there, because they didn't understand that as they were sitting and letting go of the ego, this was a new experience, an experience without the ego. That's good. It was for that point that that person was practicing well, that unfortunately they gave up because of the ignorance. They didn't understand, and they didn't have the faith yet in getting there. And they were diligent enough to practice, but they're afraid of the reality. And this is Nagarjuna's point, is taking a look at this and say, hey, look at time, look at it and see if it holds water or not. We get to the next line. A non-static time is not grasped. Nothing one could grasp as stationary time exists. If time is not grasped, how is it known? You see, this is the argument I was making earlier, is that if it's flowing like this, you cannot stop time and say, that was a wonderful time. Well, that's past recollection, but it has nothing to do with time. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just this grasping, or what St. Augustine said was this widening of the sphere of the ego's conception. Okay, we go to the final one, I think. If time depends on an entity, then without an entity, how could time exist? There is no existent entity, so how can time exist? And that was from his previous commentary on the fact that there's no form, there's no entity, no life and being, no self, and saying, if that is that way it is, then all of this collapses. And so he, in his bringing all of this stuff up, he's cutting off pieces of the limbs, all that the ego sits on and says, this is the world, this is me, this is time, this is space, this is my mind. And Nagarjuna just keeps cutting and cutting and cutting, so that one has to be faced with, well, what exists and what doesn't exist. So he's really forcing the person to examine and to contemplate. And that's important. He does not present a counter option to it, because presenting a counter option would belie his examination of time or space or self or whatever, because presenting something to the contrary would still exist in the samsara. Philosophers were always saying about Nagarjuna, because they didn't understand what he was doing, was that he was presenting things in a way in which was a classical refutation argument. At that time, there was very high level philosophical arguments at that point. But what he's doing is he's presenting not an argument per se as it is, but he's presenting the refutation of the separate existence inside this bubble. And he's presenting the doorway for the examination into the inconceivable, but that cannot be examined or cannot be comprehended within samsara. It is why we constantly talk about turning the mind's eye inward, because turning the mind's eye inward, then it is the Buddha mind in Buddha time to be able to do that. What is the difference? Does the Buddha have a watch, a cosmic watch? It says, oh my gosh, I'm late. 5 kalpas have passed. I was busy doing my crossword puzzle and I missed it. He doesn't need it. There is no Buddha. We have the idea of a reward body, the Sambhogakaya, that is there, but it isn't in this way. The Nirmanakaya is an appearance body. You are all appearance bodies. All of you. Some of you are not as wise as others, but you all are an appearance body, because the very mind that's listening to me right now is the Buddha mind, masquerading as this mechanical puppet in this world. We don't understand that. We don't have enough faith. If we have faith, if we study the sutras, listen to well-known advisors, practice well, you can penetrate. You can break through this, and all of a sudden, the world begins to make sense. You understand why a person is saying this, doing that, thinking this, whatever it is. You understand that whatever you do via body, speech, and mind, when used in the proper way, is a reflection of the Buddha mind, is a demonstration of the Buddha mind. Whatever we do, however we use time in this world, is a demonstration of the Buddha mind. So for this short lecture that I gave, I spent actually several hours preparing it. It doesn't matter to me, because in terms of me spending several hours, it seemed like 5 minutes, and this seemed like 1 minute of time to present. But it is following a function. It is following an awareness of that there are those of you who are interested that have the ability to be able to break through. Sooner or later, you'll break through. And there's many of you that I've seen that have made breakthroughs. Many of you. And this is the way you do it. You follow the Buddhas and study, you listen to well-known advisors, and then you put it into motion, and it will work. My time ran out, and I only got to about 1/5 of all the things I wanted to talk about. But I think you get an idea of it, and that's the most important part, is the spirit of all of this. So with that, I will take questions. Amitabha. Harry, go ahead.
Hi, Gilbert. Nice to see you. This is so interesting, so important what you're talking about. Just as an example, in the first chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Sun and Moonlight Buddha gives a Dharma talk that lasts 50 lesser kalpas, which is slightly longer than waiting to renew your license at the Department of Motor Vehicles. So, and no, his mind and his body and all the mind and body of everyone listening to him doesn't move. And at the end, nobody's tired, and they get up and they feel as if one meal time has passed. So, yeah, it's very interesting to contemplate that. If you ask a samsara question, is how could anybody learn anything if their mind wasn't moving? And that's being caught up in the idea that wisdom somehow comes in concepts, which is, I think, an erroneous view. But it's there's an example right there of you can't get a metric in that example.
And it is in this way, it's very interesting, because as mind begins to reveal itself via the practice, we have less caring about present moment time and more attention towards the remaining amount of breaths that we take, and not from this idea of the specter of death, but the idea of, have I done enough with this body? Have I done enough that I can really present the Dharma to people? And the same way Master Sheng was, and he held his body on until he finished his university and finally gave way. Otherwise, I think he would have been gone earlier, but it wasn't something that was a measure of time as much as a measure of function. And so when we see things in this way, then we don't really care about the time so much unless we're wasting the time. But I think in that way, he must have been a pretty darn good lecturer to hold them for that long, unless they all went to sleep. But I don't think so. I think he kept them in great awareness during all that time. But yeah, thank you very much. That's a good example. And you'll find them all through the sutras, by the way, but I used Avatamsaka for this. Okay. Any other questions? You guys should have questions about this. Yes, Ian.
So I'm trying to think about this experientially, and that our experience or our idea of time seems to have everything to do with our relation to objects and to phenomena. And so the more that we have some type of reactivity to phenomena, either an intense aversion or an intense desire for the objects, makes like the time really seem to stretch out. Like you're either in unbearable pain sitting in meditation, or you can't get to be with the person that you love. But then there's in the practice of meditation where you are still working with an object, but it's having a proper relationship with that object. And so there's no clinging to or no aversion to it, just like sitting on it. And the example that you've given, the bullfrog sitting on the lily pad, just completely covering it and having no response or reactivity to it. And when that works, time is absolutely meaningless. Like there might as well be no time, because there's such a contentedness or a union with that object that there's no interaction with other phenomena, which would give credence to the illusion of time.
Yeah, this is the door that we go from, let's say, I would say the springboard of the samadhi, that we go beyond that, so that we go beyond even the idea of this idyllic sitting that we can sit, and dance all night, and still have stayed for more. That we have to even move beyond that. And when we move beyond that, when we're sitting, I even say when we are sitting, when mind is sitting, mind will join mind. By its nature, it will join it. When the ego is put to rest, when the mind is resting in rigpa, in this clear mind, mind will rest. And in this resting, lo and behold, this world disappears. It's still there, but mind knows that it is a product of mind. It's a creation of mind. And it makes sense all of a sudden, all the things that are happening, why people dress the way they do, why they say things the way they do, whatever they're doing, everything is perfectly in its place. One sees everything differently just simply because it is the mind's observation. This is what comes from a very good sitting. And we go beyond this kind of a feeling of well-being into just letting mind reveal itself. And this turning of the mind's eye inward then is, let's say, a view of everything outside the bubble. So it's like, this is samsara, and it's like the Buddha looking at samsara and just seeing what's in there. And all of this is what's known. What's in here cannot know what's out here. It's inconceivable. It's inconceivable how far it goes. No matter how far it goes, the Buddha stretches out the hand. That hand will never stop. It's infinite. The light is infinite. Here, we can't measure things in that way because there's no measurement. There's no time. There's no distance. There's nothing. The Buddha mind is intimate with everything within it. Why? Because it belongs to its body. It's not separate from the body. It's just projected on the Buddha body. So using these kinds of analogies, I try to help you so that when you sit, you just keep going beyond that. Okay? So anyway. Okay, I'll take David.
Oh, thank you, Gilbert. I was definitely very uncomfortable listening to this talk. And again, it's I guess it's one thing because of my age and the body beginning to slow down, and having lost some friends over the last couple of weeks, and realizing my own age and everything, and realizing in a sense, I don't have a lot of time maybe left. But I was also struck on, you mentioned Buddha time, and as that may be something I would like to very much contemplate, and maybe if it's even possible to live in Buddha time.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's inconceivable. You cannot squeeze your back end through that little pinpoint in the bubble. It won't fit. All right. It is just simply a projection on the Buddha mind. Buddha time or Buddha present moment, same thing, does not have a real time to it. It is the way it is, and it is that which in the Diamond Sutra enabled the Dipamkara Buddha of predicting Shakyamuni Buddha would become a Buddha in another lifetime, because it knows that. It knows the future, but that future is also the past. It's already, to that Buddha, already a fait accompli. Because the Buddha doesn't measure things from past, present, and future. All of those things are within the Buddha realm, but not necessarily in the order of these projections that appear within the samsaric world. So it's different. But you contemplate that and see how that goes, but don't take yourself with it. Okay? You can't take yourself with it. If you take yourself with it, then, you'll cling too much to the body. Let go of the body. Let go of the idea. Yeah, you're getting old. I mean, you and I have to think twice about buying, ripe bananas, or green bananas. We may not be around for them, right? And so, but it's just that way. Just keep working. A lot of stuff I talk about is for you, and for you, because it's kind of like that hourglass in the Wizard of Oz, and that sand's running out, and you're looking at that. But that's good, because that means that you should practice all the more so as if your head was aflame. So not bad.
Okay.
And that's why I do my best to try to help you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Sam, go ahead.
Hey, Gilbert, thank you for the lecture, and it's good to see you after this long layoff. So thank you again. What I wanted to quickly ask you was going back to when you asked us to contemplate time, and there was the moment of silence. There was a thought that came about that was that awareness, or this true mind, is not in time. It's not bound by time. And how, just like how when you were talking about with meditation going, and similar, Ian had a much better way of concisely talking about it. But when sitting in meditation, there are the sittings where the method, using the method correctly and meditating with right view, where this meditation, it's like as though you just sat down and then it's over. But then there are the times where you're preoccupied with the pain in your leg and you can't turn your awareness away from that, and someone is sniffling next to you, or so on and so forth. And that can make the meditation feel even longer than 45 minutes. So I was going to ask you, is it that time being illusory, though it is illusory, time depends on the state that mind is in? So then when the mind realizes it's not its true mind, or the true state, or this non-arising mind, would that imply that time itself depends on mind?
Time is created by mind. So, of course, it depends on mind. It's a dependent origination, and it's a projection on mind. But as a result, it's a phenomena. It has that aspect of constantly changing. So all of the things that are Dharma Dhatu, that are constantly changing phenomenally, they belong to mind, but they're projections on mind. This is the difference, where mind has all the time in the world, literally, and beyond that, all the time in all the billions of worlds it has. Why? Because it created it. And so when it looks at things in this way, it's very, very important, because there is not, let's say, a anthropomorphic Buddha in space floating around like some hot air balloon or something. It's not that way. It's everywhere. It's intimate with the smallest bug, the smallest grain of sand, a dead leaf, a cloud. We always use clouds because it sounds so romantic, but I mean, it can be anything. A piece of discarded chewing gum. It's intimate with all of those things. There's not anything apart from it. it's neither sacred nor profane. And as we begin to accept that, this is important. We move away from this idea of let's say a monistic God or polytheistic gods or anything. And it's very interesting. I didn't get into a chance to be able to talk about that in detail, but they were talking about how if God created time, then he's not perfect. He can't be perfect because he had to create something after his own creation. So that's not separate. It gets to be very, very much a rabbit hole doing that as well in terms of looking at it. But all of a sudden you start looking at it. And what happens is this stuff that I'm doing pops into focus. It's like all like you can't really see it, and it becomes very clear. And it just takes the constant practice and doing that. It's the same as when we're contemplating time. Boom, it's clear. In that moment, it's clear. And it didn't take too much time to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not bad. Okay, good. Frank?
Thank you.
Hey, Gilbert.
Hello.
Also have a question on this topic of time. And I was wondering, so like sometimes when being mindful throughout the day and just trying to be fully present with the activity, this like sense of awareness of the time creeps in as almost like a boredom. And, of course, the method and kicks in and you can kind of like bring it back to the activity and not give it any second thought. But the real question I have is how do we like stabilize this so that as that's falling away, we don't have to keep bringing it back so often. Do you know what I mean?
You have to use the right effort, the right concentration. That's very important that you use enough effort to keep your method or to keep what you're contemplating there, and using the effort to be able to scour the mind to be aware of anything that has arisen. And again, it is this idea that the crime is not in things arising in the mind, but not knowing soon enough that they've arisen. So you constantly are honing that ability. That ability is the awareness of mind itself. That once, as you begin to turn the mind's eye inward, that awareness is capable of multifunctioning. It's capable of seeing all of these thoughts that are arising and then being able to settle the mind down and understand they belong to mind. It's natural that they're there. One of the things that's a very confusion to a lot of people when they begin to practice is that they have so many thoughts. They say, I'm so frustrated. I have so many thoughts right now. I thought my thoughts would go away. I said, that's wonderful. And they're saying, what? I said, that's wonderful. That means now you're aware of the thoughts that are arising in your mind. Before, you were totally blind to it. So this is a process that you'll have all of these thoughts come up, but all the more so then is that's when you need to bring your method to a perfection, to make it impeccable, continuous, and then to break through that, because you haven't seen that before because you were walking around blind. So if you have a lot of scattered thoughts, that's not bad. It's natural that they'll appear. All you have to do is just leave them alone. Let the mind take care of them. Okay? If you start walking around trying to poke this one out and poke that one out, the ego is going to say, we're doing a really good job of this. And you're letting the ego come in the back door. So just be calm, be aware, and it will work. Okay? Trust me on that. That's what's going to get you there.
Thank you,
Okay, Nathan.
Hi, Gilbert.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is my first time in here, and I just really appreciate everything that you're giving and sharing. My question is about the funny analogy you did, that we're holding on to the dog poop, and it's all we know, so we're scared to receive the gems. I like that. And I was wondering, obviously, to receive the gems, I've got to let go of the dog poop. But is it the nature that the gems exist somewhere and I need to know where to reach and receive them? Or is the receival of the gems just having had let go and being willing to move forward in my life with nothing in my hands, if that makes sense? That's the end of my question.
Sure. Actually, holding on, and I don't want to be known for this analogy of this dog poop, but holding on to the dog poop, you convert it to gems. It's natural. If you look and say, "Oh, what am I holding on to that dog poop?" I don't want to hold on to that. That's like, why would I do that? But that is wisdom. That is wisdom. There was a very old saying that my dad used to say, from way back, that wise people would tell people who weren't wise or stupid. They'd always tell people that were 20 years younger than them, and they would say, "You don't know Shet from Shinola." Forgive me for the words, but what they were saying was that you don't know the difference between the two. And what I'm saying is that you have to see and then say, you're going to trade this for this, trade wisdom for ignorance, trade the ego for a bodhisattva path. That's wisdom. So moment to moment in your daily life, you choose the Buddha. Choose the Buddha in body, speech, and mind. Every moment, make that decision that you're going to do that. Make the awareness of the mind be there so that you go, what am I doing? What am I saying? What am I thinking? Until such a time there's no I there at all. There's just simply the flow of wisdom operating in accordance with vows to help others. When that happens, then the body will still be there, but it understands that there's a function there, and that's the Buddha mind is demonstrating via this body. And you may think, "Oh, I'm here," but really, come back in 100 years, there might be an old video, scratchy video of me somewhere that somebody dug up, but my flesh is not going to be here. You cannot find Gilbert. You cannot find the Buddha in this body. He's not there. The Buddha is just mind. And the more that we look at things in this way and see, and we put down these conceptions such as time or form or whatever, suffering, joy, nirvana, all these concepts, we put them down, then this mind, because it's the Buddha mind, becomes completely connected and intimate with your intrinsic nature, which is the Buddha nature. It's natural in this way. So if you practice in this way, it will happen. Okay. So I'll leave it with that one. Need to cut off now, but thank you very much for attending. We'll come back next week with another thrilling episode of something to make you feel squirmy. But it will work for you. Just hang in there, everybody. So it's good to see you all. Good to see the new people. You're all welcome. The new faces and some of you that are here, and you'll see people that are here, senior students. They really practice well, and there's quite a few bodhisattvas already within this group, and so I welcome you to join them. So thank you very much, and we'll finish. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gilbert.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Gilbert.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Gilbert.
Amitofo.
Amitofo to all of you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you.
Amitofo, Gilbert.
Yeah, again, good to see new faces, old faces.